Every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi. So if you are watching me on the replay, thank you so much for watching me. I appreciate you. If this is your first time in my live, my name is Celeste and I am a therapist from Boston. And I come on, I talk to people that are doing things to empower the lives of others. And the whole mindset behind coming on is to just help people kind of shift the way they think. And I've been able to do that because people are sharing their stories and really giving us some really good tools and things to think about on how we can like work on navigating like what we're going through, especially now during this time. Hey, Missy. And so I'm streaming on 3 different platforms. So we're on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. And if you are new to this platform, this show is actually a podcast. So all the episodes that are broadcasted end up becoming an audio and we are listening to it on the podcast. So that's pretty amazing. So I'm going to bring in my special guest in 1 second. But before I do, I wanted to put up this wellness wheel. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is there is a free workshop where you can watch a 10-minute video that I created around the different areas of wellness. And a lot of times we don't realize where we are struggling. And so imagine if we had like a tool to be able to look at and understand like what's the area that we're struggling in and how we can actually start to work on it. So that's something that is available at celestetherapist.com. And another thing that's happening is there's this 100K toast taking place. So I have surpassed 100,000 downloads. And hey, Joshua, I've surpassed 100,000 downloads and I'm going to celebrate. And so it's going to happen on Zoom. I have amazing sponsors. So there's going to be giveaways. There's going to be some games and music. And it's just to kind of celebrate this milestone of being able to kind of go from 1 download to 100,000 downloads. And so that's pretty exciting for me. So I'm excited about that. So today I have a really special guest I'm going to add to the stream. She is going to share with us about what she's doing and really give us some tips on ways that we can kind of work on what we have going on right now. So I'm going to ask her to introduce herself to you guys. Hello, beautiful. Can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Yes, thank you so much, Celeste, for having me, first of all. My name is Dr. Charli Brown. I do quite a few things in this world. My focus is really getting people to a place where they take ownership of whatever their idea of wellness is on a daily basis. So I really love your idea of the wellness wheel, and let's pinpoint it. Let's say, let's get some nuance into how we're feeling in any given moment.
That's good. One of the things that your title is a transpersonal psychologist, and I've never heard of that. So can you kind of explain to us like what that means?
Absolutely. Transpersonal can sound a little bit foreign. It can sound like an alien, but it's actually fairly simple. Transpersonal means the connection and integration between mind, body, spirit, and environment. And the integral part, integrating that, is kind of bringing that into one dynamic whole. So one dynamic whole of the mind, body, spirit, and environment.
Okay, I've heard, it's interesting because I've heard people talk about mind, body, and spirit, but I never actually thought about the environment piece as part of the system. Tell people how important it is to kind of think about the environment as we're thinking about the mind, body, and spirit.
That's very interesting that's what you picked up on. I added that piece as an easier way for people to understand kind of what transpersonal is. And the environment, I think an example is best to illustrate that.
Yes.
So traditional psychology essentially asks what's wrong with the head. Now, that's an oversimplification for sure.
Yeah.
Transpersonal psychology asks, what experiences have happened to this person to bring them to this moment right here, right now?
Yeah.
And environmental forces, environmental actions, environmental happenings, those are all very much a part of the person standing in front of you or sitting next to you or across the room from you or wherever that other person is, including you. The environment is so important to who shows up and how in any given moment.
No, I like that. And it feels like more holistic when you describe it that way. It feels, because, you know, we know about this DSM. One of the books that I love is The Body Keeps the Score. And one of the things that the doctor talks about in this book is that people with these complicated histories, how they don't fit the criteria. So for people that are listening, the DSM is a diagnostic manual that providers kind of use to do diagnoses, especially when it comes to insurance, is important. But one of the things that happens is that sometimes everyone doesn't fit in this neat little box. And some criterias, I think, are kind of left out. And the way that transpersonal psychology operates, it sounds very much holistic in a way for people to really get a big understanding on what's happening, not just kind of like what's happening here. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and the DSM has a strong focus on pathology, as does traditional psychology. It's looking at what's wrong, whereas transpersonal psychology kind of looks at what is, without necessarily labeling it as wrong or right. These are the pieces that make up this individual person, and what can we do with that? How can we, sometimes it does need healing, sometimes it just needs acknowledgement. Yeah. But looking at all of these various pieces to say, hey, this person is whole. I spell holistic with a W in front of it instead of an A.
I love that.
I love that. Wholeness rather than with holes.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so good. I love that so much. One of the things you said at the beginning of this broadcast is that you like to work on helping people take ownership. Can you talk a little bit about how powerful it is to take ownership of what's happening to you in your life?
Well, we love being a victim. Being a victim helps us not be responsible for the thing. And while we may not have been responsible for the thing that did in fact happen to us, what we can be responsible for is everything after that, is the way that we deal with it or don't deal with it, the way that we view it and name it and talk about it or not. I give an example of myself. When I was a teenager, up until about my early 20s, I used to lead with this just horrible story, and it placed me in victimhood, which there are benefits to being a victim. Sometimes that is maybe the only way we know to get the attention that we need. We don't necessarily have the tools we need on an everyday basis to deal with all of the things that have happened to us in our lives, for sure. Yeah. And what I finally realized at about 20 was that while this thing was true, yes, I didn't have to lead with that part of my story. So many other things were also true, and I could lead with those. Those felt much better to lead with. And so taking ownership of, in that case, my story, my narrative, what story am I telling? Words have power. What story am I recreating over and over and over again? And those words having power shows up in our body and our environment. I believe that our environments absolutely are a reflection of our deepest beliefs about ourselves.
You are just like so on point. And one of the things that another book that I absolutely love is The Power of Now. And one of the things he talks about, Eckhart Tolle, one of the things he talks about is how our body can hold on to pain. And so if we're not consciously in these moments, right, if we're not leading the narrative, the pain that I might be experiencing now on May 26, 2020 will relate to some pain experience that I've had in the past, which continues to allow me to stay in this victim mentality. And one of the things he said is some of us, like, that's all we know is trauma and pain. So to take ourselves out of that placement would be a shock to our system, even though logically we know that I don't like feeling this way. I don't like being this way. But if we can consciously understand, like that's probably all we know. So as we're trying to take ownership and change, it's not going to be an easy transition. Is that fair to say?
In my experience, absolutely.
Now, when this all stuff happened, the pandemic took place. One of the things that I wanted to do was like help people around their mental health, because I know a lot was talked about around our, making sure we keep social distancing and washing our hands. And, we're in the same field. So I'm sure the thing you thought about too is like mental health, right? Tell me a little bit about how you have pivoted, what you've been doing since this pandemic took place.
So part of my offering was what I'm calling Mindful Moments with Dr. Charli. And at the moment, those happen on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. There's a pretend set time that I almost never get. So sometime in the earlier part of the day between about 10 a.m. and about 3 p.m. Eastern time, which is a wide berth, but I am posting them in kind of, on my social media platforms. And that was just to kind of offer a pointed, hey, you're okay in this moment. Mm-hmm. And if you're not okay, that's okay too. Mm-hmm. It's okay to be where you are and how you're feeling in just this moment. Mm-hmm. And so what that is really just a moment. I try to keep those under 5 minutes. And it's just, sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a quick offering, sometimes it's a quick action step that you can do, just to remind us that if you're able to listen to this, you're okay enough to listen to it. So it's sometimes a slight shift can make a world of difference. In a book I read about momentum, I think it's called The Momentum Principle. Darren Hardy is the author. He talks about shifting 1 degree. If you're on an airplane, airplanes are maybe a little taboo right this moment. But if you were on an airplane that was bound for New York, if you went 1 degree up, I think it would hit Boston, and 1 degree down, it would hit like Wilmington, Delaware, or something like that. So understanding that the power of a small shift is that it can open up doorways for a larger shift if that's what you need. And this has been a very difficult time, both physically and mentally, but also kind of energetically. There's been a lot of heavy energy that we're just kind of steeped in for all of this time. So the mindful moments are a way for me to say, hey, I got you. We're here together. Let's see if we can shift our focus just for a moment to get us to feeling something that feels better. And there is power, and there is power in sitting in your feelings right where you are.
No, that's so amazing. And the energetically piece that you talk about, I just want you to go a little bit more into that piece, because one of the things that took place for me when this happened, I was already actually working from home. So a lot of my day-to-day stuff didn't change, other than I had more sessions, right? But I started to feel this heaviness over my system. And I'm somebody that is an energy person, so I already knew what was happening. The weight of the world felt like it was on me. Can you explain? Because some people aren't really understanding like how that works. And I think it's important to kind of talk about a little bit.
Absolutely. So that's where the environment piece comes in. The environment has its own energy. If you go out into the forest or the woods or the mountain, that has a distinct feel to it. Yeah. So that's the energy we're talking about, except we're talking about it from people this time. We are beings of energy. Everything is energy. It's just at different levels of density, at thickness. So humans, we're fairly thick, whereas the atmosphere of the earth, for instance, is fairly spread out. So the heaviness, I felt the heaviness too. When that energy is kind of directed in one way by a large group of people, it's almost as if you could touch it. It's like humidity in the atmosphere, in the air. And it's essentially like that humidity is settling onto your specific individual body. And you're feeling it. I was feeling what you were feeling, Celeste, as well. And understand that that's a real thing, that can determine who you are and how you show up. I think it does come back to that, where this energy, if you've been stuck in a toxic environment for all of your life, and maybe you have a writing class or a yoga class or something that just makes you feel good, doing that, taking you out of that, it feels good for the moment, and then you go back into what feels toxic for you. So that one step may not be enough to change the toxic environment that you're in. And the opposite is also true, where if you are generally in a safe, good feeling space, one toxic thing might not change the dynamic of your safe feeling space. Mm-hmm. So energy is the feeling of a thing almost made palpable. And our bodies collect energy. Our hair collects a lot of energy. I know if I'm going into a space with a lot of people, again, that might be taboo right this moment, a space with a lot of people, I need to pull my hair up or I need to cover it, because my hair is like a big antenna and it'll take all that energy in. And when I get home, I'm exhausted from having had to people so much, and then carrying that energy in my hair in a very specific way. And so some people feel that as an empath. An empath is a person who feels other people's feelings, emotions in all directions. They feel it as if they were their own. And so a good friend of mine, he calls me a social empath or a situational empath, where I'm not taking it from one individual person, but boy, that group, I sure feel all of that. Wow. So I felt that heaviness too, just in people's fear and uncertainty. And that fear and uncertainty are more dense than joy and gratitude. So joy and gratitude have a lightness about them, whereas fear and density have a heaviness to them. So they feel heavier and lower to the ground, which is also our body's way of telling us that it would be useful for us to ground, to send that energy into the earth. Maybe in bare feet, if you can touch the earth with bare feet, bare hands, literally hug a tree, that it in fact does work. The trees are sentient beings, first of all, and connecting with a tree is big enough and rooted enough that it can take whatever you have. Tree's job is to transmute energy, pull it apart, break it down into manageable things, and make things grow. So the tree can take it, but it's an exchange of energy. The tree will also give you energy back that will likely rejuvenate you, as will the earth.
And if this is somebody's first time kind of hearing this, if this is your first time hearing this, it may sound like a foreign concept to you. And one of the things, like everything that she's saying for me is true. And anytime I go into nature or the woods, there's this lightness and there's this peace, right, that I feel. And I can have peace in the midst of chaos because I've embodied that environment of peace, not because this is like how I've been my entire life, but I've worked on like shifting a lot, like that 1 degree that Dr. Charli talks about, like it was 1 degree, then another degree, right? It was, if this is like foreign to you and you feel like you're so far off, literally taking it 1 step at a time to trying to work on that environment so that you can embody it. So in the midst of chaos, it won't rock you too much. So one of the things thank you for sharing the energy piece, because I think that's powerful. I think so many people are listening to this right now and probably having some like epiphanies about themselves. I never realized I was an empath. I couldn't understand why. Anytime I was 19 working in a homeless shelter trying to figure out why I was coming home so depressed and like just crying about everybody's story. And it took a while for me to understand, like, oh, I'm taking in all of this stuff and I'm literally storing it in my body. I was literally storing everybody's pain in my body. And so like, I was just full of pain. And so I think somebody's listening to this is going to start to have some like epiphanies about themselves and their lives. Now, considering the things that you do, I think it would be important for you to give us some things or tips on what we can do in this moment, because you feel like a very solution-oriented type of doctor. You're like, what can we do like right now?
I am a Capricorn. We are pragmatic and solution-oriented. Yes, absolutely. So some great tips to shift just that 1 step and to just take the step in front of you. You never really have to take anything but just the 1 step in front of you. So one great way to do that is taking 3 deep breaths. You can do that anywhere, but what we're going to do is we're going to enhance it. I want you to put your fingertips on your cheekbones with a little bit of pressure.
Ooh.
And and then we're going to take 3 deep breaths all the way into our bellies. I want you to breathe in like you're filling up a balloon, and breathe out. Twice more. Breathe in. If you can hold it for a moment, breathe out. One more time. Breathe all the way into the bottom of your belly and fill it up like a balloon. And breathe out. So, how do you feel, Celeste?
So I feel good. I always talk about breaths, but the actual sensation of me touching my face, like it feels like an extra grounding thing that I'm doing. And my fingers are a little cold, and I just like, oh my gosh, I'm here. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes. So it very much brings you present. What your fingertips on your cheekbones are the end of your stomach meridian. Meridian is just a pathway, like a highway of energy that's in your body. There are a number of them. You can learn a lot about them in traditional Chinese medicine. They talk a lot about meridians and the way energy moves. But meridians have a name. So our cheekbones are the end of our stomach meridian. What does our stomach do? It helps us digest food, our literal stomach. Our stomach meridian then is going to help us digest ideas and life and our environment and surroundings. So what this does, putting our fingertips on our cheekbones with a little bit of pressure, gives our body the signal to, hey, calm down. We can digest this. We can get through this. And the breath, they're both enhanced by each other, although you can do them separately. If you just sat with your fingertips on your cheekbones, your body also would get the signal to calm down a bit.
Wait, is this something you would like kind of, because, when people aren't used to doing certain activities in the midst of an anxiety attack or a struggle, it's hard to tap into those tools. Is this something you would suggest to people to kind of build in their schedule?
Yes. And the thing about either of those things is you can just take the 3 deep breaths. You don't have to stop. You don't have to make extra time for that. You can take 3 deep breaths at any point in time. I used to work as a private tutor, and every session I would start my kids with us taking 3 deep breaths together, because the breathing together allows you to ground and also for you to come center with the other person. It's like a collection of bringing us here to the present moment together. So when you do that with other people, it is enhanced. And there's a number of varieties you can do with that. So one year I was in graduate school at the time, and I got to my own finals, which was, of course, the same time as my students' finals. And I said, why am I so unstressed? And the thing I could think that I did was all year, 3 times a week, we took 3 deep breaths together with my students that year. So really, the breath is amazing because it can go everywhere. If you just took 3 deep breaths once a week, if once a week is where you can start once a week. If you can get it up to once a day, it will enhance exponentially. That's a math word. A whole lot. It gets better quicker for non-math people.
No, I like that. That's good. So trying to build that into our schedule, and that allows us to be kind of grounded. Mm-hmm. Are there any other quick tips that you can kind of give us to kind of work on that grounding technique that we need to have, especially during this time?
So yes, not quite grounding, but stopping freaking out. So we're gonna also start. It's also on our face.
Can I say something real quick? I love how you're a psychologist and you're saying like freaking out. Like I love the way you're using terminology that is so simple to understand. Yeah, it's freaking out. Thank you, Dr. Charli.
Yeah. Yes, because when people are freaking out, that's what they're doing, right? So we're going to take our thumbs, we're going to put them on our temples, and you're going to let your fingertips rest on your forehead, again with a little bit of pressure. And what you're going to do is, as if you were wiping sweat or wiping the day's worries off, you're going to take your fingers and wipe behind your ears and off your shoulders. Behind your ears and off your shoulders. Let's do that twice more. Thumbs at temples, fingertips resting on the forehead. Let your thumbs can just move with your hands. You don't have to do anything special with them. So fingertips on the forehead, wipe behind your ears and off your shoulders, and let it go. Like sweep it off your shoulders. And then this third time, thumbs on the temples, fingers on your forehead, behind the ears. And this time come and let your hands rest at your heart center. Your heart center is your home place. And so that lets you know that you are home, you are here, you are present in your own body. And the meridian we trace this time is called the triple warmer. And the triple warmer is like your general. The triple warmer is like, we will do this thing. And so when the triple warmer takes over, kind of hijacks your brain, your neurons and all of that. And it thinks you're at war with everything. And when you run it backwards, meridian is like it's like a two-way street, but it has a valve. You can only go one way at a time. So when you run it backwards, which is what we just did, that calms it down. When you run something forward, that ramps it up. So we calmed down our triple warmer meridian.
That's good. Can I ask you, how did you get, because this is so non-traditional, and I love it. Like I've been doing this podcast for almost 2 years, and I've met some amazing people and learned some amazing things. And it's really opened up. I started it because I wanted people to know there's more than one way to heal. And It really opened up my mind around the things that aren't really in America, mainstreamed in America. So how did you wrap your mind around this and get because you're like really good at what you're doing, and I could tell you're passionate about it. How did that come about for you?
I'm trying to give you the concise version. So I went to a very stressful school from 5th grade through 12th grade. It was an academic magnet, but people were so focused on grades. So one of the things I noticed was that I was a manager for girls track and cross country, and then played basketball. Mostly because you had to be, and because it kept me in school, because you had to be marked present for 2 periods a day in order to go to practice. So it kept me in school. So what I noticed though was that the girls would get their best times their freshman or sophomore years. And then it was sort of a downhill struggle after that. Junior year was hard, as junior year is for many high school students around the country. That's the year that counts, is kind of what we were told. And we didn't understand it until we were juniors, and you're just trying to get some of your homework done so you don't have to take home 4 textbooks every night. So we're sitting in the hallway struggling, trying to get our homework done. And what I noticed at that point was that we were just all stressed out. We were so stressed out all the time. So in 11th grade was kind of my opening to that. My mom introduced me to her Reiki people. Reiki is also an energy modality. Yeah. And you can do it. You can touch the body. You don't have to touch the body, because energy doesn't need physical form in order for it to do whatever it's doing. So Reiki is the same thing as Chi, is the same thing as prana, which is a universal life force energy it is healing. It is sort of the stuff of the universe. Mm-hmm. And if you run that through someone, that it will help whatever's going on in their body. It'll help it heal. It'll calm it down. It'll do whatever it needs to do, because it also has its own intelligence, this energy force. So 11th grade, when my mom introduced me to that was kind of the start of it. And I've just been learning about it ever since.
Wow.
So I've been just collecting all sorts of, I'm an information and people collector. So I've been collecting all sorts of information. And as you said, I like things practical. So I try to figure out, how can we take these kind of ideas that may seem out there, and how can we make them reasonable to digest for the everyday person?
Yes, and you do that so well, like in this short amount of time. I feel like I've learned so much. Now, if people wanted to work with you or reach you, are you doing any kind of coaching or anything like that? Because you're really good at this stuff.
Yes, so I do offer coaching. I also have a course that's self-paced. If you're interested in these kind of tools, it's called Practical Tools for Everyday Wellness. And so that is a longer version of some of these tools. And that's just something you can do. Like, I came up with that name because that's what I want people to do. I want you to have a practical way that doesn't take up much time. That course, you can run it all at once. You can take it all at once, and it's done in about an hour. So you could really take it over your lunch hour if you wanted to, or you can do it at a slower pace and take one a day for a couple of weeks. They take about 5 minutes, the videos are. So that's one offering. I also do clarity sessions, which those help people get real clear on one specific thing. In addition, I offer coaching as well. And you can find all of those things on my website, drcharlibrown.com. And I spell Charlie with just an I and Brown like the color.
Got it. That makes sense. And in the course, could people expect some of the tools that we just learned today?
Yes. So breathing is always my starting place, because if you are still alive, then you can breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So breathing is always my starting place. But yes, some of those tools are offered, but there's also quite a few more that are offered as well.
Okay, and then the part about if you can breathe, you're still here. You know, when we really stop and think logically about some of the things, we'll start to be like, you know what, that is true. But because when we're struggling, we can't. It's hard to think clear, and so that's why I like the idea of like having those tools in my toolbox to ground myself, so I can gain a little bit more clarity and be like, I'm okay, Celeste, you're okay, right?
Yes. Okay. And if you practice them when you're not in a panic, when you're not having an anxiety attack, you might not, but you might just remember in the midst of that I have a tool for this. You might be doing it unconsciously. Like you might just start wiping your hands off. Yeah. When you hold yourself, that's important, because this is a point here. There's points on the back of your head too. So us covering ourselves and holding ourselves, that's important. It's okay to follow what your body's doing, because your body also has that inherent intelligence. And so the idea is, if you can get some practice before you're in the midst of some heightened situation, maybe, just maybe, the heightened might be a little bit less. Like it might be not as high, not as strong of an anxiety attack. And B, you might just use one of the tools that you've been practicing.
Yep. And A and B worked for me. Like what you're saying is so true. So this was amazing. You are great at what you do. One of the things that I like about the way you deliver it is that it's practical. And so I, like, as a therapist with my clients, I'm very practical in my delivery, because when I was struggling, when I was at a place of struggling, I knew what didn't work for me, right? I knew that what it felt like it was over my head, which is why I had to stop you and say, like, I love how like you're able to just talk to us, because I think when you're struggling, it kind of goes over your head sometimes, some of these things, and so like thank you for being you and what you do. That's amazing.
Thank you so much, Celeste. I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you and your audience.
Yay. So make sure you guys check Dr. Charli out. If you go to Dr. Charli Brown, such an easy website to remember.
That was the point. That was the point.
And drcharlibrown.com. Yes, and we appreciate you. Thank you, Dr. Charli.
Thanks so much, Celeste. Take great care, everyone.
Bye. That was so good. I really, really love what I do. I just love what I do. And anytime like Dr. Charli, like people like Dr. Charli come on, and I just be getting so excited. I'm like, yes, tell them. Because before this podcast, I would come on Periscope to talk to people. And the idea around this podcast was because I was like, I'm the only one telling these people. And I'm like, there's other people out here that's doing the same thing as me, but in different ways. And so let me bring them on so that they can share and co-sign what I'm saying. And the whole energy piece, just like, I felt like passing around the collection plate. It was so good. It gave me chills, because anytime I'm around other people that are speaking my language, it really like warms my spirit. I can't tell you what it does to me. It's something energetically, I guess, that it does for me. And I just enjoy Dr. Charli. So make sure you guys go to her website, check her out, Dr. Charli Brown. And don't forget, if you guys are going to party with me online, of course, because, you know, we still in lockdown. If you go to my website, celestetherapist.com, you'll find a link to register. We are going to do this on Zoom. I have some amazing sponsors, some amazing giveaways. It's the 100K toast, because I have went from one download to over 100,000 at this point. And I've reached over 100 countries. And so one of the things about what my goal has been is I said I wanted to help people heal around the world, right? Regardless of race, gender, socioeconomic status. Like, I didn't want socioeconomic status to be a reason why people were not able to get to their healing place. And a lot of times in America, we are, we are driven by the medical model of like just psychiatry and therapists, right? I thought those were the only two ways. And so are you telling me because I can't find a psychologist or a therapist or psychiatrist that I can't heal? And so I really wanted people to know, like, there's other ways for us to work on our healing before psychiatrists and therapists. I don't have nothing against therapists. Clearly, I'm a therapist. Ain't nothing wrong with therapy. But I do realize that it's not always accessible for people, right? And so I really wanted people to know that, like, if you don't have the access, or if you can't find a perfect fit, that, I really want you to be able to think about, well, what can I do like right now? And with Dr. Charli and her practical tips, she's like about right now. Like, we're not talking about in the future, like what you can do right now. And so that's the mindset that I have now for myself. And I really, because I'm so excited about how I learned this mindset, I really have been trying to push this agenda out. And so, like, I'm glad that people are gravitating towards it, and I'm glad that people are, kind of sharing this content, and not keeping it to themselves. So we'll be back tomorrow. We're gonna talk to somebody else who's doing something to empower other people. Y'all know I love y'all so much. I appreciate y'all for rocking out with me. And until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later.
Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.